Well, hello.
Hello, how's it going?
Oh, computer crashes, stuff like that. Life is happening, but hey, we're here. That's all that's important, right?
Yep, that's exactly right.
So, we're going to talk about budgeting today, but we're going to do it so different than anybody else talks about it, right?
Yep.
So when I say budgeting, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Or what do your clients mostly say?
Uh, so they think of it as the dirty B word. So it's restrictive. It doesn't allow them to have any fun. It's just doing stuff that they don't necessarily want to do. And seems like a lot of work for a lot of people because they'll see people doing spreadsheets and doing all of this manual stuff, and they're like, I don't have time for any of that. So
Yeah, I get a lot of resistance as well. I rarely even use the word because it's such a trigger for people.
mm-hmm.
But I think we're both on the same page that we've got some debunking, if you will, to do about the
Mm-hmm.
word budgeting. I think there are gurus out there that says you must have a budget, and I think society says you must have a budget, and companies must have a budget. I think that's just kind of the whole idea is it's something that we should do.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to say, well, why do we want to shit on ourselves if we don't understand why we need these things?
Right.
So I know when I was in debt, um, I would sit down and do all the research and make this beautiful, elaborate budget, but I'd never go back to it. And I
Mm-hmm.
figured out there's a missing component. And that missing component was why I was why I was budgeting
Mm-hmm.
and why I wanted to stick, because I wanted to stick to a budget. I wanted to get out of debt. I knew it was a tool that would help me, but I just never could follow that budget because I had the same mindset. It's rigid,
Right.
difficult. I can't have fun with it. It's too hard. It's going to take too much time. Blah 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 blah. Feel the same way when you were getting out of debt? Yeah.
Oh yeah, and like for me, the time aspect was really a big part of it too because I I'm a paper person, so like there was a year where I went and bought one of those budget notebooks,
Yeah.
and it was separated by months, and then you could track your savings, you could track your debt, you could track like your everyday expenses, and I liked the idea of it. I liked, the idea of just having a book to write everything down in. But then you think about how much time that can take, and then if you get just a little bit behind, then you have to allocate even more time to go back and look at all the money you spent. And there was a benefit to it if you could stay disciplined and stick with it. But once I started really ramping up my business, I found it really hard to keep up with something like that. So that's where the time factor comes in. If you're doing any kind of the manual tracking and budgeting, it can be a timely process. And so thankfully, there's all sorts of different ways that you can keep track of it that doesn't have to be that way. And so that's why I like educating people around budgeting and just awareness around their finances, because I think they always learn something that's available to them that they didn't know about.
Right. Well, and when we focus on what we're spending our money on, we learn a lot about us.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know that when I overspent, it was after a hard day. Well, if I
Mm-hmm.
didn't do any type of tracking, I never would have realized, oh, wow, there's a pattern going on here.
Yep.
So we don't identify the patterns. We don't even see what the issues are if we
Mm-hmm.
don't do some form of keeping an eye on what we're doing.
Yes, exactly.
But I think the main component that's missing is not understanding why we want to do this.
Mm-hmm.
We all know that we should. There's that shoulding again, that we really shouldn't ourselves.
Yep.
I think if you're open to it, I'd like to take you through a why exercise if I can get
Okay.
to when you were in debt.
Okay.
So think back when you were in debt.
All right. Got it.
Why do you want to get out of debt?
I don't want to pay money towards this debt. I don't want
Like
to have to fund past me, basically.
like the interest, you don't want to have to
Yeah.
pay. Okay.
Yeah. I
So
don't
why
want to. I don't want to have to pay for past like expenses and things that I've made and pay interest and all of that. Give more money to the credit card company than they need.
so why don't you want to give why don't you want to pay past expenses and pay interest to credit card companies?
Because it adds up to be more than what the initial purchases were. So it's a more expensive thing to pay for than just pay, like having the money outright to pay for it.
So why is that a problem?
It's a problem because if you want to be financially healthy and be able to save money and do all of that stuff, you want to make sure that your money is working for you and that it's going towards the things you want it to go towards. And one of the best ways to lose money is to be paying, interest or late fees or any of these things to companies because the money was mismanaged.
So why do you want to be financially healthy?
Financially healthy is really important to me. I believe it's indicative of bettering your both financial situation and giving you a lot of options, but it also helps you mentally too. If you think about people that are stressed out or anxious or whatever, a lot of that stems from financial insecurity and, struggling with debt or struggling with a paycheck to paycheck cycle. And being able to build up your financial health and be more knowledgeable around that really helps to lower that stress and that anxiety, which makes you feel better.
So why don't you want to be stressed out other than feeling better?
So being stressed out really does affect your physical body, and I think that's something a lot of people don't think about is that stress can present itself in different types of ailments and illnesses and things of that nature. And people who are stressed out typically live shorter lives than people who don't or who manage stress appropriately. So a lot of people don't realize being stressed out and anxious around money has health implications as opposed to just the feeling of its own of not being very comfortable.
So why do you not want to be ill because of your money stress?
Because I would like to be healthy and live a long, happy life and do all of the fun things that I want to do and not have to create another financial stress and anxiety of paying for the health issues that I accumulate for stress and anxiety.
So do you see what happened there? We went
Yeah.
from because I don't want to spend more money towards credit card companies. Well, of course. But the
Mm-hmm.
real reason why you want to budget and get out of debt is because you want to live a happy, healthy, fulfilled, fun life.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, I can attach to that when I have to sit down and do something I don't want to do and remind myself I don't have to do this, but I want to live a happy, fun, fulfilled, healthy life. And I think that is a big part of what's missing when we sit down and do a budget. And so what I would challenge our audience to do is find out your why. You know, when I sat down and did this process originally, it was so I wouldn't be stressed out, so I wouldn't be a fraud. So, I mean, I went through this whole thing And when it came down to the end, it was so I could live the life I deserve.
Mm-hmm.
That is so much more powerful than because I don't want to live like this anymore, because I don't want to be stressed, because I don't, yeah, we all know that. But every time I would resist updating my budget or updating my plan or writing down my spending for the month, I would remind myself, I'm doing this because I want to live the life I deserve.
Mm-hmm. So how do you, because I'm wondering, I'm curious if you've seen this with some of your clients. We live in a very instant gratification society right now where people want to do the things or see the things or have the things right now. And they're not really thinking about the things that they have to wait for in the future. So I'm seeing that with my clients in retirement planning. If they're in their 20s and 30s, retirement is a long way away. So it doesn't make sense for them to be putting money away for this far off down the road scenario, because they're like, oh, that's for later. I'm more concerned about what's happening right now. Like, I can't afford to put 500 a month away into my retirement. I would like to go traveling now and go do all this stuff now. How do you work with clients who have that kind of mindset?
Goals. We set some goals.
Mm-hmm.
So through questions like, so what if, so let's say they're planning 3 trips this year. Instead of going on 3 trips and you only went on 2, and taking the money that you had allocated for that 3rd trip, by investing that today, it could turn into X. How
Mm-hmm.
would your future self put yourself in the future? Look at your grandparents that are still having to work, that should, here we go, that shoulding again, should be at home enjoying life. Look at the
Right.
examples everywhere that you see of people trying to catch up later on in life
Mm-hmm.
to get that retirement. Because my goodness, had I known at 20 what I know now, an extra $100 a paycheck really would not have made that big of a difference to me.
Yep.
So it's that understanding. And even, it's never too late, but let's look at the future. It's just, we really need to get our clients into the future. And if we don't make a small sacrifice now, not a big one, a small one, then we're going to be doing a lot. We're going to have to work so much harder when we're older.
Yeah. There was a statistic I heard recently that said 75% of retirees right now regret not saving more earlier in life, because they're
Yes.
in a position now that they didn't necessarily think that they were going to be in or anticipate themselves being in. And
And
they
that's all through
realize,
literacy, right? It's all through,
right.
because we didn't know what we do as best as we know. And that's
Mm-hmm.
why you and I are on a mission to educate, because the sooner you start, the easier it really is.
Yeah, totally. But that's the kind of mindset that I think people would be helpful for them to adopt. Like, yes, absolutely, having some goals, short term, intermediate, long term, but also thinking about the future and
Mhm.
thinking about, you don't have to live in the future,
No.
but you don't want to only live day to day and not think about what future you wants to do and not be able to set them up for that. Whether it's, even if it's not retirement per se, but if there's a particular lifestyle that you would like to live, or a particular type of house or car you want or whatever, those are all future you stuff that comes with goals and comes with how do you get there.
Mhm.
And I think that having something like that put together is going to be super helpful.
Yeah, and I think the other component of this is, why do you feel you need this right now?
Mm-hmm.
So is it because it brings you happiness?
Mm-hmm.
Is it because you can escape? So understanding why we can't save for something, or why we can't set aside, which is savings, why do you need this right now?
Mm-hmm.
I think that should also be explored, to understand why you're needing that gratification. So when I would shop, I was literally escaping my own thoughts. So I didn't,
Mm-hmm.
I that was a way for me to turn it off. And
Right.
so I didn't have to think about what was going on. I need to do this and I need to do that. And I need to, I was able to get away from all of that for just a
Mm-hmm.
moment, but it only gave me relief for that moment. And then not 2 miles down the road, I'm like, oh my God, I shouldn't have done that. The regret, all of that starts. So I
Yeah.
question, so you feel like you needed it right then. How do you feel about that thing today? Are
Yeah.
you still getting the same emotion that you did when you purchased that item?
Mm-hmm.
And what would happen if you put aside for that and could really afford it, plus put in your savings, plus put in your retirement, plus do all the things that really align with who you are and your
Mm-hmm.
goals?
Yeah. That's a big one of the biggest things that I do with my clients in the very first meeting I have with them, is go through what their financial goals and dreams are. And I
Mhm.
say the word dreams because when people think of goals, they think, you know, structured and like qualitative and smart goals and, all of this other stuff. But we want people to dream too. A lot of people don't do that anymore.
Right.
And we want people to think of the possibilities that could be out there and not just make assumptions of, based on the way I'm living right now, I'm only going to be able to get a 2-bedroom house and I'm only going to be able to drive a certain type of car or maybe go on one trip a year. But if you're dreaming, you can think about the things you really want. Like
Hmm.
think about the kind of lifestyle that you want, the kind of things or experiences that you want. Put them down on paper because then they're in front of you. And then you can start really planning on what that could look like. And people may think that achieving those dreams are impossible, but they're only impossible if they have already, you know,
Written them
shush
off.
them away. Yeah.
Right.
If they've
Right.
already said like I can't dream, it's not going to happen for me. That's one way that you won't achieve that. But if you think about the things you would love to be able to do and have it written down, then that's where the budgeting can really, because that could be your why,
Hmm.
and you don't have to necessarily have just one why. You can have multiple whys. And once you kind of see that on paper and then you're like, oh, that's something I really do want. How do I go about getting to that? That does
Absolutely.
make budgeting seem a little bit more attainable and less, rigid and whatever else, because now you have something that you're actually shooting for. So,
Yes, and I do the exact same thing. So my clients always set one goal regardless of money.
mm-hmm.
So what is one goal, no matter how much you think it's going to cost, because usually it's not as much as you think.
Right.
What is one thing that you really want in life? And we go after it. We
Mm-hmm.
absolutely figure out how to go after it. So
Yep.
yeah, it's all in your mind, because you can, like my mother always said, you put your mind to it, you can achieve everything. And you truly can. If you put it out to the universe that you want a 4-bedroom house, you will get a 4-bedroom house. You will
Mm-hmm.
do, if that is really important to you, because you want to have a large family, because of all the things that go along with the material portion of that, then it makes sense.
Yep.
And you will redirect how you think about things.
if any of our viewers are into journaling, this is a fantastic journaling thing that they can do where, one of the most helpful ones I had was say that money was no object.
Yeah.
What does your life look like? What house are you in? What car are you driving? What do you do for a living? Where are you vacationing? Like, what are your kids up to? If you have, you know what I mean? Like, you can journal up this dream life under the guise that money is not an object, and think of the things that you envision for yourself. And then that right there is basically your dreams in a nutshell. So then you can turn those dreams and whatever you wrote down into actual goals, and then figure out how do you set, monetary values to those, how do you set time frames to those, and now you've got goals to start reaching for the next however many years.
That's right. So we need to set our why, and we really understand why we want to do this, because I mean, when you start saying no to certain things to say yes to others, that's not easy. So we need to know up front why we're doing this. The other misconception I think out there is once you're in debt or once you set a budget, you cannot have any fun whatsoever. You've got to sit in the dark. If you can walk to work, walk to work. Definitely don't get in your car. All of these crazy, it's like all or nothing. We can only have all or nothing.
Yeah.
But that's not true. That is absolutely not true. I mean, going and getting your hair done, or going and getting your nails done, or going and getting your feet done, or whatever it is you feel as pampering is important during this process. Because you still have to live. You still have to enjoy the journey.
Yes.
And so we just plan for that. So do you have you experienced this too, where people come to you saying, I can't have any fun, I can't go to the movies, I can't rent a movie, I can't do anything?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely an assumption that comes with budgeting or just with debt management, which go hand in hand. And it's definitely something where people need to think about what's really important to them, and then they can incorporate that into whatever kind of budget that they develop. So, if someone really needs to get their nails done every 3 weeks, they like having nice nails kept up, whatever, and they know it's going to cost them $75 each time or whatever else, they can budget for that $75 every 3 weeks. What do I have to have available, while they're also paying off debt, while they're also trying to save an emergency fund? Like, all of these things are not mutually exclusive. They can happen at the same time. But you also have to make sure that you have maybe some other things you do need to cut back on. So like if you want to do your nails, but maybe you have to cut back on subscriptions, or you do your nails, but you can't eat out as much as you were before. Like, it's all a balancing act. It's a give or take, and it doesn't have to be that way forever. There are some times of the year where, for instance, the spring, summertime, people are ready to go outside. Rooftop, bars and restaurants are really popular here in Colorado. And that's a time that people like to go out and socialize with their friends or coworkers or whatever else. So maybe in the spring, summertime, people like to budget a little bit more for eating out or happy hours or whatever else. But then that means that they can cut back on something else that they were spending. It's all going to ebb and flow and change as the years and the seasons go by.
Yes. And once you set a budget, doesn't mean it can't change.
Right.
That's very important. I mean, your mortgage or rent is your mortgage or rent. Your car payment is your car payment. But once you get past all the recurring type bills and the quarter, all the bills, the rest of it can be changed as the seasons change. And it is absolutely something that you want to readdress every quarter. Because like you
Yeah.
said, our seasons change. So I think the best way to start seeing where your money is being spent is to track it,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Either on pen and paper or the gajillion apps that are available out there. There are tons available.
Except Mint. Mint is going away, and that makes me very sad. R.I.T. Mint.
But there are others.
There are others, yes. There are plenty of others, and that's something else that that people need to consider themselves when they start thinking about this is, do they have the time or the mental capacity to track things manually, spreadsheets, budget books, whatever else? Or is this something that you'd rather an app do for you and then you just go in and review things? I mean, there's really something for everyone, regardless of how busy or whatever else. But utilizing one of the methods is going to be crucial, because knowing where your money is going is going to be the first real step in developing a budget. It's hard to develop a budget when you don't know how much you're spending on groceries or gas or any of the other stuff that you spend. And then, figuring that out is going to be crucial.
Yeah. And if you don't want to look at it from today forward or whenever you decide, you can always open up your bank account and look at the last 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, seasons change, but it will also give you a snippet of about what you're spending on groceries, about what you're spending on gas. It's just to get a base and then sit down and say, how do I feel about spending X amount eating out
Mm-hmm.
5 times a week?
Right.
If you're okay with it, great. But if you decide, wow, that number shocks me, then good to know. Now we
Right.
can go, that's where we can go to work on coming up with, oh, I'm spending X amount at the grocery and X amount eating out. Wow, did not realize that. And that's really all we're trying to bring to the surface here is awareness. We need to be aware where our money is going. Because I
Yeah.
know when I look at mine, I'm like shocked.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh my god, it's time to reel it in, everybody. We're spending way too much money. Yeah.
Yeah. Having actually paying attention to the visceral reaction that you're having to your discretionary spending. Sure, it's easy to sit there and say ugh, I hate spending this much on your mortgage. But like you said, it's your mortgage. You need to pay it. It's there. It's whatever. So think about the spending that is discretionary, that is not a need of yours. Reviewing that kind of spending and seeing how it really sits with you and how you feel about it. You know, it was a couple of years ago that they came out with how you can look up on Amazon how much you spent there over the year. It will actually calculate it for you and have in a space in 2023 you spent this much at Amazon. And there were some people who were like, I'd be curious to know what that number was. And some people who were like, absolutely not. If I see the number, I will throw up. There is no way I'm going to look at that. And both are valid. Especially around the pandemic, people's 2020 numbers on Amazon were probably insane. But again, it's one of those things that you have to listen to yourself as you're reviewing it. If you did add up all of your Amazon purchases, would that number make you feel like, yeah, that was a good way to use this? I bought only the things I really needed on there. Or would you see that number and be like, ooh, somebody should take my credit card away?
Yeah. So all this exercise does is show you where we need to start working. That doesn't mean you have to cut it all out. You don't need to beat yourself up about it. We're just getting awareness. That's it. So I think we've given them enough to do this week because we've asked them to find their why. And, go ask yourself 7 times, why? You saw Amanda. Her initial answer was, well, that's what we all want. But when we got right down to the heart of it, she wants to live a happy, fulfilled, fun life. And that's a pretty damn good why, if you ask me. And let's take a look at our spending and see how we feel about our discretionary spending. All the other stuff that's coming out monthly, yes, we can take a look at those too. But right now, let's just look at the wants that we're spending on. I think that's a great place to start.
Totally.
Anything else to add today?
I don't think so. I think our viewers have plenty of things to think about for the next week, and I'll be very interested if anyone wants to share their experience in that, or if they kind of already know their why, or have done a review of their finances before and how enlightening that was for them.
Yeah, it'd be great to hear some people. And if anybody gets stuck, I mean, we both offer complimentary calls to help you get unstuck. We'd love to know, we're here to help. That's what we're here to do. You can also comment. I mean, the more interaction we get from you guys, the better these sessions are going to be.
Yeah.
So till next week.
Yeah. Talk to you next week.
All right. Fantastic.